Hello. So, I don't really know how to open here, so just cue the title card. Recently, there's been a good amount of speculation revolving around owners creating multi-club models. Basically, what this means is one person or one business has control over multiple clubs. Now, this isn't exactly a new concept. I mean, look at City Football Group, who own multiple clubs across the globe. In fact, that's just one of many examples. There's smaller examples like Lazio owner Claudio Lotito, who formerly owned Salernitana. But now this model is starting to get a little more popular with the bigger figures in this sport. Most recently, Chelsea owner Todd Boehly purchased French club Strasbourg, and also Newcastle owner Amanda Staveley has said in public she wants to buy more clubs through Saudi Arabia's public investment fund. The main criticism of the multi-club model from fans is the fact that if your club isn't prioritized at the top, there's not really much to look forward to. Your club won't get anywhere near the investment that the main project is getting, and even worse, your club might turn into a feeder for that bigger project. Sure, you'll have financial stability, but you'll also be in this never-ending purgatory. But that's only if the holding company is actually reliable. There's many other businesses similar to City Football Group that have been absolute disasters. Which leads us to our topic for today, 777 Partners. 777 Partners is an American private investment company that got into the business sector of football not too long ago. They dipped their toes into the waters at first and purchased a minority stake in Spanish club Sevilla back in 2018. 777 bought another 1,200 shares of the club to raise their capital to 7.5% in 2020. Then 1 year later, they bought 99.99% of Italy's oldest club, Genoa, for an estimated 150 million euros. In February 2022, they acquired 70% stake in Brazilian club Vasco da Gama for $330. It was Brazilian football's biggest transaction ever. Just a month later, 777 completed the full takeover of Belgian club Standard Liège for 55 million euros. They then bought third division French club Red Star soon after. In October 2022, the investment company purchased a minority stake in Australian club Melbourne Victory to add to their ever-growing portfolio. Then most recently, in March of this year, 777 became the majority shareholder of German club Hertha Berlin. 777 insists that they have invested into these clubs using only the money from their owners' pockets. Which makes you think, these guys must be loaded, right? Right? At the end of 2021, one of 777's subsidiaries recorded a loss before tax of 26.7 million, and unfortunately most of the clubs they've bought, it's been the exact same story. We'll look at Genoa first, since they were the first club that 777 took full control over. In 777's first year with the club, Genoa finished 19th and relegated to Serie B for the first time since 2005. Mind you, I Rossoblu had finished 11th the season before. Then during their first season back in Serie B, Genoa was docked a point because the club failed to pay outstanding taxes and contributions on time for the months of September and October of last year. Genoa would return to Serie A immediately after finishing second this season. However, it was recently reported that the club suffered a 61.7 million euro loss in 2022. 777 reacted by acquiring loans totaling up to 62.4 million that they will have to eventually pay off. Keep in mind, the future expenses of trying to keep the club up in the coming Serie A season could dig an even deeper hole of debt for the club. Next, there's Vasco da Gama. As mentioned before, 777's transaction of Vasco da Gama was the largest in Brazilian football history, which gave supporters of the club a sense of optimism, which only grew more promising when founder Josh Wander vowed to fans the club would no longer have a financial disadvantage. And so far, things were going well. Just months after 777 became majority owner, Vasco returned to the first division. It was their first promotion back to Brasileiro Serie A after a 2-year absence, and fans could look forward to the incoming funds that would improve the squad. However, Vasco this season has made its worst ever start in the Brasileiro Serie A ever. In 10 games, they earned just 6 points and were sitting 19th. But considering the team promoted by finishing 4th last season, I mean, maybe this was just to be expected. At least in the long run, there was money to buy players to improve the squad. Oh, what's that? There's barely any funds to do that, you say? Apparently 777 wasn't investing anywhere near the amount that would provide the success that they were promising to fans. Vasco were nowhere near their rivals in cash flows, and not to mention the majority of 777's funds were covering debt payments and operating costs, meaning there was barely any money to spend on the actual squad. According to a balance sheet in December of 2022, the club had reported a deficit of 124 million. They're not even making a profit. But it gets worse because two clubs have been demanding payments for players Vasco recently bought. Both Argentina's Atletico Tucumán and Uruguay's Nacional are currently demanding FIFA punish Vasco with a transfer ban if the club can't pay back the combined 3.5 million. Vasco also owes money for two of their star players and another player that's currently on loan at the club. I think we're starting to see a parallel here. But this story isn't done yet. Just a week ago as of this recording, the Deliberation Committee of SAF, who were a minority shareholder, held a meeting to discuss the finances of Vasco. In this meeting, it was revealed in November of last year that Vasco SAF made a loan worth $5 million to another company 777 owned. And never once did 777 tell any other shareholder about this loan or why one of 777's companies needed it in the first place. And so as a result of the lack of not only investment but transparency from 777, fans have been protesting in front of the club's offices demanding answers, having been lied to during this entire ownership. Standard Liège's story is pretty much the same thing as Vasco's, just a little more tame. Manager Ronnie Dela had been told that 777 would be able to invest in the squad to give him a title-challenging team. However, just like at Vasco, those were broken promises, and because of that, Ronnie left to manage Club Brugge in late May 2023. 777 took over Red Star in France and made a promise in the form of a 5-year plan worth 30 million with the goal of Red Star returning to Ligue 2 in one season. However, the left-wing Red Star Ultras did not take kindly to some American capitalists taking control of their club. They then took their frustrations to a match in April 2022 and protested the takeover. Flares were thrown onto the pitch and banners read 777 not welcome and 777 out. And just like every other club, of course, promises were broken. Red Star did not return to Ligue 2 in one season. They are still in the 3rd division. When it comes to 777's minority share in Melbourne City FC, we can't really say much because it was very recent. Then there's the case of Hertha Berlin, the most recent purchase of 777. Now, in all fairness to 777, this club was already a dumpster fire. And even though this transaction was completed in March of this year, there's still a couple of things we can talk about already. Firstly, of course, Hertha fell to the 2nd division and also have a 40 million euro loan that they have to pay off. Again, that's not the fault of 777, but now that 777 do own the club, they'll have to deal with that loan. But there's a couple other concerns as well. The first one being worries that 777's control of the club might violate Germany's 50+1 ownership rule. The other is the fact that 777 is already looking toward outside investors like the Saudi Public Investment Fund to help them inject money into the club. Already a red flag considering it's been 4 months and they're already looking outside. But also just remember that these guys insisted on the fact that all the money going towards these clubs is coming from their pockets. Now, lastly, there's Sevilla. Again, 777 only have a minority share, but they've tried fighting the local opposition for more influence within the board. Oh yeah, there's also been multiple sources reporting that Sevilla has listed their entire squad to get rid of 90 million euros of debt, and I can assure you, considering what we've seen so far, 777, despite having a minority share, probably won't do shit about that. Now that all these stories have been told, there's a very distinct pattern between all these clubs that 777 owns. At the start, the owners will promise big things beyond the fans' biggest imaginations. And then a few months to a year later, those promises are broken because they simply don't have enough money to fulfill any of these promises. Already, a private investment company claiming to be funding out of only their owners' pockets drew up suspicions. But with every story at each club we've gone over, it just solidifies all these suspicions. It really just seems like the company just entered the world of football just to add a bunch of clubs to their portfolio. But the thing with portfolios is usually you want them to look good. You want them to show that you're making money across a whole network. However, 777 has allegedly lost millions in every club that they have majority ownership in. One thing that 777's owners consistently ensured was that every club would have equal treatment. And, I guess they did that. Now, if you want to learn more, because there's a lot more about 777, check out this incredible article by Yosimar, which also dives into the really disgusting allegations of inhumane business practices from the owners themselves. I already grabbed a lot of info from this video from Yosimar's article, so I think it's only fair that I leave the rest to them because they deserve all the credit for this incredible deep dive. But with the case of 777, it really does question the integrity of the multi-club model. model. Because if your club isn't owned by a business like, say, the City Football Group that knows what it's getting itself into, then you could end up just like any of these clubs we've mentioned in the video. And the problem is, most owners and businesses getting into the world of football don't truly know what they're getting themselves into. I'd love to hear what you guys think about this. Is the multi-club model the inevitable future, or will there be some kind of hope for this game that has been stolen by the rich? Let me know. But of course, a massive shout out to all our patrons, including Stin, Janos Balas, Miliue009, Aldipu, Alex Rod, Olta, Arai-san, Carlos Anaya, Chris Damasceno, Daniel Ortiz, Francisco Hernandez, Guy, Joao Carvalho, Marco Fujimoto, Miguel Munoz, Return Fire, Rory Burns, Saw, Slider Kit, Sniffers, Taco Okafan, Tomicus, Vanilla Mexican 17, Victor, Chris Visconti, Q90 Champs 2022, Dominic Griffin, Emmett Shea, Lewis, Joe Paricio, Lucian Von Croix, Michael Nista, Niche, Patrick Barley, Sylvia Citrus, and Unbroken Persona. If you'd like to join the Patreon, there'll be a link down below and up in the annotations. You can follow my Twitter if you want, follow my Instagram if you like, follow my TikTok, trying to get to 20,000 there, and of course you can follow my semi-active Twitch. But until then, I'll see you guys.